Hello, everybody. Welcome to the May Prestige Global Meeting Sources Education Webinar Series, where we explore topics to empower you with knowledge and tools to thrive in your career and your life. I am your host, Sasha Andreev, and today we're exploring a really unique topic, one that I think a lot of you are probably curious about. It's called Designing Human-Centered Experiences for Meetings and Incentives. Now, if this is your first time with us, we're so happy that you're here. And if you've been here for a previous webinar, welcome back. We always love seeing your, at least, names under the attendee screen, not faces, at least not yet. Now, here at Prestige, we provide full service meetings and event support for event planners. We make our clients' lives easier with site selection, event logistics, housing and flight management, creative marketing, and personalized on-site support. We collaborate with our global network of hospitality partners, all for your success. And part of our mission is to keep you informed and empowered. And that is how this webinar series was born. So every month, we invite guests from our vast network to share their expertise on subjects that affect your professional and sometimes even your personal lives. And that is certainly true with this month's topic and our very special guest, Maura Zhang. Now, before I bring her on, I want to tell you a little bit about her. Maura is a Caribbean-born travel industry leader with 25 years of experience in companies including the Ritz-Carlton, Clinton, Biltmore, Noble House, and Benchmark Hotels, where she earned Chairman's Club, Platinum Club, Attitude, and Determination Awards. She's also the founder of IKŌNIK Destinations Collective, currently representing the Curacao Tourist Board, Naples Marco Island Everglades CDB, and Sonoma Valley Visitors Bureau in the North American market. Maura has a bachelor's degree in hospitality management from Florida International University, has earned both CIS and CITP, is past president of Site Florida and Caribbean, current VP of Sustainability and Wellness on the Site F Florida and Caribbean BOD. She's a popular speaker at industry conferences. She's even won the Smart Meeting Smart Speaker Award in 2025 for her Embodiment Lab workshop. And in addition to all of this, Maura is also a certified wellness practitioner and a certified yoga breathwork, sound and energy healing instructor. And today, she is bridging her experience in the hospitality and events industry with her wellness background to talk to us about creating human-centered experiences. Maura, this is so much. I want to welcome you to our webinar, and there's a lot to cover here.
Yes, I know. I wear several hats, and it's a pleasure to be here and be able to share some of my personal experiences and professional experiences with everyone.
Well, I mean, you have such a vast experience both in event space and as a wellness practitioner. And I know in 2021, you founded WELLDOM Inc. to consult, create, and curate well-being experiences for groups. Can you tell us a little bit about how that came about? And I know previously we chatted, there was some specific things that happened in your personal life that gave birth to all of this.
Absolutely. Weldom kind of was born out of personal, trials and tribulations. And just like many of us in the industry in the world, the pandemic was actually something that really affected my life professionally as well as personally. I've always been on like a wellness journey, and it's always been from almost like a physical perspective almost, as opposed to anything else. It was about working out and losing weight and things like that. And then when the pandemic hit, COVID really affected my family, and I actually lost my father to COVID. And in navigating that state of like grief and anxiety and all the social and emotional, heaviness that we were dealing with at that time, I actually found myself reaching into spiritual practices. And I became a certified yoga instructor at the time. And that led me into like this path of learning breath work and meditation and somatic practices. I became a certified wellness practitioner. And so when I started practicing these modalities, and then we started kind of getting back into normal life, getting back into our events, getting back into, IMEX, I think was like the first event that I actually ended up going to. And I felt like I wasn't ready. My
Mhm.
body had been through so much and I hadn't processed it, and it was too soon and too early to come back for me. And I know that, that was the same experience for some others as well. So I started really intentionally bridging this wellness experience that I had received with our meetings and events and with my other life of representing destinations and CVBs and doing sales and marketing. So, it's not separate. It's all rooted in the same foundations. And so that's the what I'm trying to bring to our world and our events is to kind of look at it from a different lens and to approach event design from this, more personal, more holistic, more human-centered approach.
Right. Well, I think we're all looking to walk away from events feeling better about whatever the purpose of that event was, but hopefully better as participants and as people. So I'm very excited to hear your presentation because I know you kind of really curated it for this webinar. Before I let you go with that, I want to remind all of our viewers that if you've got a question for Maura during the presentation, there's a Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, so you can use that to log your question and we'll address it at the end of her about 25-minute presentation. And the chat window is open as well. And I know Maura might be posing some questions and looking for some responses to get a sense of where people are at with some of the things that she's talking about. And lastly, if you want to check out this presentation again, share it with somebody who can't be here. We are recording this and it will be made available for viewing on the Prestige Global Meeting Sources YouTube channel, so you can always reference it later. So with that being said, Maura, the floor is yours, and I'll see you in about 25 minutes or so.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Sasha. So, I know that there's a lot to unpack today. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we
Thumbs up?
can.
Okay, great. So there's a lot to unpack, and I feel like wellness can be a little overwhelming. Like, is anyone out there just, getting too much information about wellness? And, it's kind of everywhere. It's on your Instagram, and there's all these, influencers, doing all these different things. Is it overwhelming for anybody? Do you, are you like, where do I start with this? What is it that really matters in meetings and events? And so I want us to take a collective breath together before we get started into the rest of the session. So just take a deep inhale through the nose and sigh it out, let it go. Relax the shoulders and um, just arrive into this moment. And before we get into the rest of the presentation, I kind of want to start by just grounding into our intentions and what is it that we're going to talk about today. And these intentions are kind of like our roadmap and our blueprint for the remainder of the presentation. So we'll explore how environment and safety really shape engagement and well-being, how we'll experience simple tools to reset stress and support resilience. And so we'll have two actual like experiential practices that we'll do. And I hope that you will stick around for those. And we'll look at also how planners can design more inclusive experiences where attendees really feel safe and connected and able to participate and engage. And my hope is that you'll walk away with some practical strategies that you can apply immediately to your events, as well as to yourself, to your personal practices. So again, I'm glad that we took a collective breath because this is a reality of like where we are today, right? Like there's a lot happening. And our attendees ourselves, we are experiencing burnout. Burnout is on the rise. 55% of workers say that they have reported burnout since 2025. Attention is shrinking, and these stats actually come from a Hilton 2026 meetings research that found that attendees feel less engaged when there is no downtime in the experience, and many will actually skip sessions entirely if they feel like they recovery is not built into the agenda. 84% of consumers say wellness is a top priority. This actually came from a McKinsey Future Wellness study that came out last year. So it is very relevant. If we are not talking about incorporating these concepts into event design, then we're kind of missing the ball with our attendees and we're not there to support them. An event can either drain your capacity to, sustain energy or help completely help restore it. So this is the first practice that we're going to experience, and this all comes from embodiment and somatic experiencing and those kinds of practices. And just take a look at that quote really quick. Being able to feel safe in our environment with other people is probably the single most important aspect of mental health. Safe connections are fundamental to meaningful and satisfying lives. And this comes from The Body Keeps the Score, which talks about being in your body and being more about being and not thinking and doing so much. This arrival practice is something that will allow you to transition from, arriving at the gate at the airport, arriving into an event, arriving into registration, arriving into an Uber, arriving into your hotel, arriving into a new destination. And it's based on the concept of orienting. And orienting helps our nervous system really reconnect with the present moment and notice cues of safety in the environment. And our nervous system is constantly going through this process of called neuroception, which is when we're scanning the environment for cues of safety or danger. So we're constantly asking, am I safe? Am I supported? Am I in danger? And this is all happening below our consciousness or below our conscious awareness as we're entering a space. So this is what your attendees are experiencing, and you might be familiar with this feeling as well. So this practice is basically just using your senses and sensory orientation to become familiar with your environment and calm the nervous system. Tell it that there is no danger, immediate danger in the environment, and really arrive into your space. So really quickly, this is something that can happen within a minute, 90 seconds of arrival. Just, anything that we're doing today, by the way, is an invitation to practice. So I invite you to practice with me this moment, as well as the breath work coming up a little bit later. But everything is an invitation. You choose, you have complete agency to, participate or simply, observe. So take a look at your surroundings. Just use a moment to kind of like soften your gaze and take a look at the space around you. And this is for you to practice immediately around your own space. Notice any light, any color, any texture, anything pleasant or neutral, maybe some shapes in the environment. Perhaps now notice your feet on the floor. Feel the support beneath you. Perhaps it's your chair. Feel the parts of your body that are making contact with that support. And allow the shoulders to relax and soften gently. If you wish, you may turn your head to the left. Slowly turn your head to the right and allow your eyes to move through the space. And now take a slow inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. Take one more inhale through the nose and make this a longer exhale. And notice if anything has shifted. Just take a quick scan of your body. Do you feel a little more relaxed, a little more present? This is a very simple exercise, but it's very powerful. And when the body begins to feel a little bit safer in the environment, we become more available for learning, for connection, for creativity, collaboration. So this is not just, a logistical move, it's a physiological concept and it's a physiological strategy. So the Embodiment Lab is something that it's actually a little bit longer than the 25 minutes, so we're doing a little bit of a condensed version today. And it's something that I created that integrates several frameworks. And it draws on my yogic background and philosophy, particularly the 8 limbs of yoga, which actually guides you through a progression of awareness and from the body to the mind. And it's also informed and rooted in the 8 dimensions of wellness. And this wheel is one of the roots of how I think about wellness event design. And it gives you the visual that wellness is not just physical, there's other dimensions to it. It's emotional, it's social, it's environmental, it's occupational, intellectual, uh, financial. So there's other areas that go into this framework. And this is just to help you think about event design in a different lens. Not every event needs to have every element or hit every dimension, but you can think about the attendee experience in this holistic approach. And when we think about meetings and events through this lens, we begin asking better questions of our events. Does this event really support social connection, for instance? Is the environment helping people feel comfortable, feeling safe? Does the agenda support occupational well-being, or does it, push people into, complete overload? Does this experience really support intellectual and emotional regulation, for instance? So the Embodiment Lab is really sitting at this intersection of these dimensions and just asking questions about how we design and how we not only help attendees, follow an agenda, but how do they feel? How are they participating? How are they connecting with the space? How are they connecting with our content and our intentions? And of course, you don't need to be scientists and you don't need to become nervous system experts. But it is nice to understand this because this concept of nervous system regulation really helps you personally, and it helps you also understand what your attendees are walking into, what your attendees are feeling in these environments. And so, like I said, the nervous system is constantly scanning for stress or safety in the environment, danger, support, or connection, or predictability, familiarity, routine. What things do I know? What things do I not know? What things do I understand? And so this is called neuroception of safety, and when you're scanning these things in your environment. This matters for meetings and events because before attendees consciously, enter the room, before they're looking at your keynote, before they're into a networking event or experience, the nervous system has already kind of absorbed all this and responded to it. The nervous system really influences our attention, our mood, our decision making, our emotional regulation, learning, social behavior, social engagement. And so one of the systems that is involved, one of the key systems that's involved in this nervous system regulation is our autonomic nervous system. This helps regulate stress and recovery responses. There are two primary branches, which are, I'm sure you've heard of them, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. So the sympathetic nervous system is our fight or flight. It's our kind of like activate mode. And it gets a bad rep because we don't want to stay engaged in that fight or flight at all times, or be in that activated, stimulated mode at all times. That's when chronic stress begins to happen. When we don't address that stress or those stressful stimulations that happen, that's when we go into that, shutdown mode and, overwhelm and those kinds of feelings. But we need the sympathetic nervous system to get up in the morning, to, learn, to engage, to speak, to move. So it is not a bad state to be in. The bad thing is to be stuck in that state. And of course, the other side of that is the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest, where we focus, where we engage, where we connect with others, where we are more relaxed, and where, we are allowing for recovery. So this system of regulating the nervous system is really kind of building resilience and going between these two states. And that is where you want to be, to have that capacity to regulate between states. And I have this image here that shows you the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the longest nerve in the body that goes from the brainstem to goes through like all the major organs into the base of the spine. So it affects heart rate, digestion, the breath, all of it. Cognitive function. All of this is affected by the vagus nerve. And some of the regulation or regulating practices really focus on this pathway. And a lot of the communication that happens, and this is where embodiment comes in, of between the vagus nerve, the body and the brain, is actually in the reverse. It's 80% coming from the body into the brain. So it is important to really become aware of how your body is responding, how your body is moving in the space, and this will eventually affect how your attendees are engaging with your event. So regulation really equals readiness. It's one of the key kind of like applied neuroscience insights of this presentation. Performance requires regulation. If you want your attendees to participate, engage, perform, this requires a level of regulation. Regulation requires safety. Are you providing safe spaces for these events? And this is kind of like a loop. So when people feel safe, they regulate better. When they regulate better, they perform better. And it's always like a loop. Not one happens without the other. It's always as supported by the other. So when people feel safe, when people feel welcomed, when people feel included, this safety really supports engagement. Belonging supports their participation. Connecting supports their learning. Regulation expands their capacity. And resilience is not really about avoiding stress. Stress is going to happen. Things are going to happen. We're going to have attendees that, had flight delays, that had flight cancellations, that had disruption in their travel, that arrived carrying all this weight into your event. But it's how quickly someone can actually recover from it by using these regulation tools, and by you providing this, and by you being aware and kind of having this, basic foundation of how this works. That's how you're really going to be able to incorporate this and really impact and influence your attendees' emotional state. And our attendees are telling us that they are stressed out, that there are things that are, family responsibilities, things back home, the emails that are coming in, all of these things that are happening in their world, that are not being taken into account when they walk into our events and our spaces. FCM Travel actually, on their 2026 trends, said that traveler well-being is becoming a KPI in 2026. So this means that organizations are beginning to actually measure well-being alongside other things like costs and profits and things like that. Well-being is becoming a key performance indicator. And just kind of taking a pulse of the room, just check in with yourself and think about these questions. And let's take this moment to kind of check in and see how this applies to you personally. What things have you noticed in your own journeys, in your own events? So perhaps type in the chat, how does stress show up in your body? How does stress show up during your events? What helps you feel grounded and present? What environments really help you feel engaged and connected? And there is no right or wrong answers. It's just, what are kind of like some things that come to mind. For some people, stress really shows up as perhaps, even like, pains in the body. Perhaps it's shallow breathing, anxiety, tightness in the shoulders, in the jaw, nervousness, irritability, maybe even brain fog. There's, short fuses, right? Like there's times that that's how stress really lives in your body. For others, it might be something like even digestive discomfort or fatigue. Maybe you're withdrawn and not really connecting. So what are some of the things that are happening with you? And this is just kind of like a check-in to see how you feel at your own events or other events that you have attended. And maybe use this as a compass or a starting point of like, how do you want your attendees to feel at your events? These are some of the questions that perhaps you can incorporate into your event design. And I'm just trying to look at the note. Yes, anxiety, jaw tightness, sleep isn't good. Deep breathing helps. Yeah. Time alone after an event, doing something just for me. That's amazing. When events start with heavy intention setting and grounding, I feel so much more calm and open. Yeah, absolutely. I need to pay attention, and I'm not even sure. I try to take a super quick 5-minute break outdoors and take a few deep breaths. Yeah, breathing is so important. And it's something that we kind of take for granted sometimes, and it's this is part of the embodiment. It's to really have those quick check-ins with yourself to feel like what are these things that are going on with me that are causing me to feel, reactive and, perhaps, having a bad attitude about this event. What's going on inside me, and how can I mitigate that? How can I regulate? Thank you so much for your participation with that. So this is a nice visual from one of my somatic experiencing courses that I've taken, not my own, that kind of shows you this fluctuation of the nervous system. And this is what I was talking about earlier. Like, yes, it would be ideal to be in this, balanced state at all times, but in reality, that's not the case. We typically fluctuate between one and the other. And this is actually the definition of resilience, to be able to kind of fluctuate between these two states and recover from one into the other. Yes, we get activated, but then you're able to calm down and regulate. And human-centered design really supports both activation. Yes, all events, activation is not bad. Events need energy. We want creativity. We want exploration. We want newness. We want this kind of stimulation. But when agendas are designed entirely around motivation and action, then it's constant output and there's not enough recovery, where you pause and you reflect and you absorb the content that you're receiving. And recovery is not the opposite of being engaged or being, involved. It's actually what sustains engagement, and it's what keeps us um, able to and capable to absorb what is being provided to us at these events. And nervous system flexibility and resilience is really the ability to move through this activation, connection, recovery, and engagement with adaptability and being able to adapt between the two. Okay. And so here are some practical regulation tools that can be incorporated into an event. You can also use this for yourself. And one of the things that I really want to kind of drive here is that, attendees, there's something called co-regulation. And our nervous systems regulate from other nervous systems. So if, as an event planner, I am, completely stressed out and reactive and having anxiety in the event, and coming from that kind of place when you're receiving an attendee, when you're going through the day, that's what attendees are receiving as well, or that's what your coworkers or your other people that are in operations are receiving, and that's how they're probably going to mirror and respond to you. So, being able to regulate through other people is actually really important. So, I pick up your energy, you pick up my energy. And this is why regulating is so important. And this does not require perfect conditions, of course. Some people said, I go outside for a walk, I take a breath. These are all things that you can incorporate into your day, into your routines that are easy to do. And of course, there's like a plethora of things that we can do to regulate, and practices that we can incorporate. Movement is one of them, and obviously we can't cover everything today. But when I talk about movement, it's not just incorporating a yoga class into your event, or before the start of the day, before breakfast. A lot of agendas actually don't do that very well because many people don't do yoga. They don't practice yoga. Many people do have other routines and other things that they incorporate into their days, other things that they use to regulate. So maybe this is not the one size fits all answer. It's not a yoga class. It's movement that improves focus and cognitive performance and circulation and alertness. And perhaps this is movement right after lunch when everybody's kind of have, their heavy, full stomachs and their brain needs a little, boost. Perhaps it's movement right after lunch. Um, Incorporating movement snacks into an agenda so that you can reset attention and during long programs. So that could be a stretch break. That could be, there's actually an event that I attended recently, which I'll show you an example of a little bit later, that incorporated this really well. They had something called the seventh inning stretch. And so we were in meetings pretty much all morning, but the seventh inning stretch really kind of helped us reset. We're talking all morning, giving presentations, and this really helped us, re recenter and reground and come back to a state of balance. And of course, the breath. This is, a few of you said it, so, a lot of you know that this is a practice that is so simple. It's a tool that we all innately have that is available to all of us. And it is it is one of the most accessible tools that we have because it's both automatic and it's something that's voluntary. So it's always happening. We don't have to think about it, but it's also something we can consciously influence. And one little tip for you, longer exhale. So if you need to downshift or, get into that parasympathetic state, longer exhales will do that. If you need more energy, if you woke up a little tired and you need to, or you're tired after lunch and you need a little more energy, longer inhale. So make your inhale a little bit longer than the exhale, and that helps energize and kind of increase that energy and activation. And today I want to practice the humming breath. And there's a lot of science behind this humming. And Brahmari pranayama is like the yogic, traditional name for this bee breath. Pranayama is breath work. It's really the Sanskrit word for breath work. And it really activates the vagus nerve. It is traditionally used to like quiet the mind before meditation, but it's something that you can ask your attendees or offer to your attendees to do, during a presentation, when they arrive between sessions. It's something that you can offer during, in a wellness lounge, maybe through guided meditation, live or in apps. And we'll just kind of take a quick little, practice so you can feel it for yourself. Because again, this is about embodiment and it's about you noticing and being in your body and kind of being aware of what's happening when you do practice these things. So the bee breath. This humming creates a vibration through the throat, the face, the jaw, the chest, the sinus cavities, and it stimulates the vagus nerve through all these pathways. It also increases nitric oxide production in the nasal passages. And what this does is it improves our oxygen uptake, it enhances circulation, it supports immune system, cognitive function. So this is something that I often practice when I need to study or learn something and really kind of absorb that material. So studies also show that humming can reduce our heart rate, can reduce blood pressure, can bring us into a more balanced, calm state of mind. We are able to engage our frontal cortex a little bit more, where we make those executive decisions, and also support our limbic system where our emotional regulation happens. So anyway, enough about the education, but let's kind of ground and try it together if you are on board. And if you wish to just observe, completely fine as well. And it's very simple. If you do the traditional way, there's a whole mudra or hand gesture that goes with it that kind of like covers all the openings in your face so that you can really internalize this vibration. But today, I just want you to try humming And then if you want to, on the second round, perhaps internalize it or make it a little more intense, perhaps you can just use your index fingers to cover your ears and see how that changes and how that shifts. So just really simple, relax the shoulders, ground yourself, feet on the floor. Take a gentle inhale through the nose. And as you exhale, use a soft humming sound with your mouth closed. I don't know if you can hear that. Inhale and try it again. Exhale, hum. One more time. Inhale. Perhaps bring the hands to your chest, and as you exhale, feel that vibration. And if you want to give it one more try and cover your ears with your index fingers, inhale. And allow your breath to become to its natural rhythm now. And take a moment to just check in, see how that feels, see if anything shifted. And again, this can be used, during stressful moments, during, when you need a little bit of activation as well. So it's kind of like an all-in-one practice. And the next few slides are going to be about how to apply this human-centered design into your agendas. And this just kind of gives you a visual of what the traditional agenda has looked like for many years and what could the human-centered design look like. And this is all based on, applied neuroscience, somatic experiencing, how are people really regulating and receiving the content. For instance, 45 to 90-minute learning blocks, interactive experiences really support how humans learn and in our learning cycles and our cognitive abilities and how long we can hold attention for. And these are just some examples. Curated experiences, personal gifting, tailored activations instead of just, again, like the yoga class in the morning and just kind of like checking off a list. How does this actually apply to this event? How is it relatable? How does it resonate? What if, for instance, networking included optional quiet zones? I'm one of those people that gets socially overwhelmed, and I really need to kind of step back every once in a while and be in a quiet space, not around crowds. Perhaps it's, offering a space where some people, and you'll find that there's more than one in each event, some people can just kind of go and chat, quietly. Perhaps, offering those moments. What if, for instance, intentional activation and recovery happened, instead of constant stimulation? So offering those recovery moments instead of just the big dopamine drops and novelty at all times and, visuals in a presentation or in a space when people walk in. These things can really just support also, stress levels, reducing cortisol, or increasing the cortisol when needed. Arrival and closing moments are really important as well, and those are moments that we often overlook. So again, empower with choices. This is really important because not one size fits all. There are many diverse audiences that we need to also consider. There's neurodivergent learning styles that we need to also keep in mind and support, in addition to many other diverse needs. And there's a lot in here, but I just wanted to give you kind of like a screenshot of ideas that you can use, because I know that these concepts can be kind of, you know, up here, and you're kind of like to bring them to the ground and bring them to actual, operational, application is sometimes hard to make that connection. So just, how do you integrate this? Nervous system regulation, breath work, we all said it. Guided grounding exercises, quiet sensory reset spaces, emotional safety, inclusive language from the stage, supportive moderators and facilitators, reflection and connection moments. Perhaps there's, reflection cards on the tables that also allow for that social connection, because it starts conversations. Icebreakers with purpose, community service activities that people feel connected to. Um, Intentional networking, so curated hosted tables. Perhaps there's like themed tables, conversation prompts for those people who, may not be extroverts. I'm one of those people that walks into a room and I kind of scan it first and see where I'm going to go, before I engage. And it takes me a little bit to kind of, enter into that space. So those curated prompts, or maybe even areas in the room that are, tailored to different interests. And oh, I naturally connect and feel, attracted to this one topic or this one color or this one, sound, then that's where I'm going to go. So thinking about these things that are kind of like under the surface, can also be really effective. And of course, this is based on the 8 dimensions of wellness, and there's many other dimensions that we're not addressing here. This is just talking about emotional support and regulation and belonging. And here's just some, I'm just going to browse through these really quick. These are just some ideas. Um, of things that you can, do to incorporate these designs. And this is actually an arrival and gifting lounge experience that I hosted as WELLDOM, for a recent event where we actually did a hands-on arrival moment during registration. And this involved a sensory integration. So as people walked in, they were invited to set an intention, to kind of ground in the moment, to blend their own essential oil blend based on how they wanted to feel. So there were things like, cooling calm or joyful energy. Like, how do you want to feel in this moment? And I hear a lot of these, the feedback from these experiences, like, wow, I didn't know I needed that right now. And sometimes you really don't know what you need until you get it. And so that's what we offer for attendees, right? And a part of this activation was that you kind of collected, so it was also a gifting experience. You kind of collected a little mini ritual kit in your bag of a candle, essential oil, a little journal, and things that would make you feel or help you feel grounded during the event and supported as well. So just an idea. Arrival is it's an opportunity really to connect and get that started, that regulation started with events. Uh, Next slide. Oh, oopsies, I forgot the last one. So this was a mindful coffee break that we actually hosted for an event about a year or two ago. And this was a kombucha tasting. So instead of a coffee break where we're caffeinating people, constantly, this was an educational moment and a moment of novelty that also got them engaged for the next session. This was in the afternoon. So we did like a kombucha mocktail bar, instead of having coffee. And so this, there's many benefits to kombucha that we explained. We had educators there. We had the actual maker of the kombucha that had all the herbs and all the ingredients that people could smell and touch and feel. So another sensory experience, that really helps kind of regulate, restore that nervous system and help people feel engaged. This was at our annual breakfast that we host at IMEX for hosted buyers. We do breath work in the morning. We step outside. We have it in a venue that's outdoors. We are indoors for so much time and for so much of that block of the 3 days or whatever we are at IMEX. And so this is such a nice start to the day, to be outside, to be in the elements, to get the sunlight, to also learn something new, to be centered and grounded in a very like not, pretentious or judgmental environment, right? Like we're allowing people to learn and participate as they wish. So again, providing choices, autonomy, and agency, huge, for this to actually, hit and really be absorbed by your attendees. And one thing that I want us to consider, and this is one of our last slides and our last moment here. So human-centered design. Think about these questions as you are thinking about, or like, trying to incorporate this human-centered design aspect to your events. And it's really about things to consider. Like, how do I want attendees to feel? It doesn't have to be anything complicated. It doesn't have to be, anything, too science forward. It's just, how do I want people to feel? How might they actually feel through the experience once I actually review it and take another look at it? How are they going to feel? Where might this be really stressful for my attendee or myself? Like, how much load am I putting on myself during this event, right? Think about that. Does the agenda support human energy and attention spans? Are there moments for connection? Are there also moments to step back and reflect? So one of the things that's really important, and I didn't even talk about this because there's just so much to cover, but meditation and offering those moments of like integration after learning. So, you have a presentation, an education session for 45 minutes to an hour. And if you're not allowing people to kind of download all that, it's not absorbing, it's not sticking. So you've missed the mark. So allowing for those moments of reflection and restoration, to come back with energy to really engage again, those are really important. Does the event align with the organization's values and purpose? Because, obviously we have stakeholders that we need to respond to. So how are we, how are we making the case for the things that we're incorporating into this design, that really align with the purpose of this event, their goals for this event? And what small wellness touch points could really create the biggest impact? It's not about involving everything. It's not about doing breathwork and meditation and yoga and and all of it. It's like, what one thing could I choose that is really going to make a big impact? And then this is your own personal on-site reset toolkit, because as planners and as attendees, we walk into these events, into these spaces, carrying the weight of the world. And if we don't have our own little, blueprint, our own little ritual kit, our own support system, then it's, you just kind of keep going, and you're running on fumes, and you're wired but tired at all times. You're reactive, you're not regulated. And so these are like really simple things to incorporate. And for instance, sunlight within 2 hours of waking really supports the um, the cycle of your circadian rhythm. The Affecting alertness and energy, cognitive performance. In the morning, if you are feeling tired, you probably maybe just arrived the night before and you're feeling jet lagged, take a cold shower. And by the way, these are things that, and I probably should have testimonials that people have tried in actual events, and they've told me that cold shower really helped. Like, I was in an event in Dubai, and I flew from America, and that was, I walked in super tired, and I needed to go the next morning and, really be alert and pay attention. And that cold shower spiked my cortisol in a good way, because I needed that motivation, dopamine, all the good things. Clearing the senses. This is actually something that I learned from my own, being a recipient of cognitive behavioral therapy. And clearing the senses really, gargling in the morning, engages the vagus nerve. Really kind of like, washing your eyes, opening your eyes to the world. Doing the humming or gargling even. It also engages the ears and hearing. So just kind of waking up that process. And I won't go through all of these, but this is, you now have orienting. You have so many tools that you can use that are so easy to incorporate into your day when you're on the road. And the start of the day and the end of the day, I do want to mention this, is really important. And I call them the bookends to the day. So, how you start with your sunlight and everything, we often kind of make that really the most important part of the day. But the end of the day, when you're gonna decompress and rest and recover, that's when that recovery really happens. When that assimilation of everything that we learned, when we download everything that's happened in our, that subconscious level when we sleep. And so again, you took a cold shower in the morning to activate the cortisol and activate and get you activated and stimulated. A warm shower before bed, sauna, really helps cool you down for sleep as well. Journaling, really thinking about, all the things that went well that day and having gratitude for that, like really like sinking into that moment of gratitude, that really helps to decompress and get those things off your mind. A lot of times you can't turn off your brain, right? When you're going to sleep, but these things really help turn off your mind. And I know that I've taken so much time, you guys, but I just want to end with this. And I want to thank you for your time, your presence, your openness today. Um, when we address what attendees are really worried about, right? Like all the things that they walk into our events with, and we design for nervous system capacity and regulation, we protect the safety of our attendees, we protect engagement. Meetings are not just content experiences, but they are also nervous system experiences. Safe connection changes how people experience your events. And when people feel supported, safe, included, restored, they engage differently, they engage fully. As planners, facilitators, hospitality, tourism professionals, we have an incredible opportunity and, dare I say, duty of care to really shape environments that support not only productivity, but human well-being, the overall holistic experience. Wellness is not separate from the experience, it is the experience. And that's it for me. Thank you so much for your attention. Please connect with me. So Cushy Meditations is my YouTube meditation channel, and a lot of the meditations are actually for like when you arrive in a space, when you're traveling, and those kinds of things. And Connect with Maura is really all the things. So LinkedIn, all of it. And that Side Bites podcast, I have that on there because it is about. It was an interview that I did with the site about post-event recovery. So that's really, another thing in your toolbox as well. So thank you so much for your attention. I know that I took long. So thank you all. And back to you, Sasha.
Thank you so much, Maura. I'm going to ask you to turn off your screen so we can see your wonderful face. Really quick, I wanted to ask you a question that came in, and I think this is sort of maybe generally is going to apply to a lot of the stuff you talked about, is sort of a few simple tips integrating attendee experience, safe space grounding for a large conference, perhaps a 3,000 person conference during the arrival process, because a lot of the things I think we hear are great for our individual stuff, especially for the event planners. But sort of can you just give us a few quick tips that maybe could be integrated into the arrival process of a large conference? And
Yes,
thanks for the
absolutely.
question,
And
Ellie.
I think some of the same concepts that will apply to an executive retreat or even a small event really can be scaled to a large conference. And you don't need to redesign an entire event or an entire concept. You can create multiple, pathways for this participation. Quiet lounges, um, optional decompression spaces, the wellness snacks, like I said, or movement snacks incorporated into, in the middle of a general session. Flexible networking formats so that maybe you have multiple areas. It's not just a one size fits all networking event for everyone. There are people, and you guys had, some recent webinars like, the mindful drinking, all these different things that people are really, engaging differently now. And so their expectations are more of like, there will be a variety of offerings for different interests, different nervous systems, different, connections. So just keeping in mind those kind of the sensory design as well, really can be scaled to a large conference.
Well, I know you put out your information out there, and of course, folks can always get in touch with you through their Prestige account manager because wellness is such a big topic, and I'm sure there's a lot of concepts. And there'll be a follow-up email for everyone, and hopefully, we'll coordinate that some of those takeaways that you had at the end of your presentation, Maura, we can include for folks to have because I think those were really great in case they didn't get that screenshot. But I want to thank you so much for taking that time. This was really interesting. It definitely set me a little more grounded space for the day. So I hope our attendees feel the same way.
Thank you so much for the space and the time, and for everyone's participation. Everyone was very engaged, so thank you.
Well, have a great Maura. Of course, please get in touch with Maura if you want through her information that she presented or through your Prestige account manager. I also want to remind everybody that on June 11th, we're going to be talking about the power of keynote experiences, what event planners need to know, and it's going to be presented by Sebastian Sassful, who's a friend of mine. He's an author and professional speaker, and who will be talking about how keynotes can really enhance your events. If you've got ideas that you'd love to see in our webinar, or perhaps you're somebody who can speak on a specific topic, you can always scan this QR code for our schedule and reach out to your Prestige account manager should you have something that you would like to address. And until June 11th, next month, I want to thank you all for being here, and I look forward to seeing you all again. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you next time.